Okay, let's welcome to our participants today on behalf of J&A Bharat HSE Foundation and J&A Global HSE Foundation. We welcome you for the 9th Outreach and Knowledge Transfer Session on need and significance of communication leadership skills for HSE professionals. I'm Ashok Garlapati, one of the founders foundations. And before we start our program, we would like to brief protocol on the virtual meetings, particularly Zoom meetings. Kindly mute microphone. As a humans, we always try to do some sounds, so we'll have a clear proceedings if you have a mute condition. And you can also switch off your camera if your connectivity is poor, and post your queries as well as comments or suggestions in the chat box. We are going to have a Q&A session at the end of the day, end of the meeting. And the meeting is being recorded for our future references. And please register your name, company, designation, phone, email ID in the chat box so that we can continue our communications for the future future events. And please stay for the ceremony group photo at the end of the vote of thanks. And as we proceed, you can also share the meeting link to your colleagues as well as friends who would like to get benefit out of this particular, important event. And today we are going to have a two-parts agenda. Agenda 1 will be the very brief introduction about these foundations. And we have some programs, professional development grants, scholarship programs. We'll be briefing about that. And the second part is the very important part of today's program is the knowledge transfer session on the need and significance of communication leadership skills for HSE professionals to achieve greater heights. And we could mobilize our very, very outstanding leadership mentor as well as the international Toastmaster, Mr. Anil Lobo. Would like to hear from him, as well as we'll have a brief introduction about him also. So after that, we'll have a Q&A session and networking and open discussion. So with that, I would like to proceed with the agenda part 1. For that, I would like to welcome my fellow founding trustee member, Mr. Jeetu Patel. Mr. Jeetu Patel, I'm sure every one of the people who are participant in this webinar will be knowing him, but for others, for the sake of others, I just would like to introduce. Mr. Jeetu is an international HSE consultant with 55 plus years of experience. And out of that, 21 years of experience in our own area, Saudi Aramco, which is the largest oil and gas corporation. He was a research scientist for 15 years at a major heavy chemical manufacturing company. And his work has taken him throughout the world, serving on such boards and committees internationally. He's a co-founder of many international ASSP chapters globally. And today he's going to share some of the lessons from his real experience of professional life, how communications have led one incident to the major industry, major devastation. So we would like to listen from him as well. And he is the most got the most prestigious award of the ASSP Fellow of ASSP. So that's the highest highest honor in ASSP, which is American Society of Safety Professionals. With that, I would like to welcome Mr. Jeetu Patel for his brief opening remarks. Mr. Jeetu.
Ashok ji, you put me on the Mount Everest. Let me just open my camera. Okay. Just wanted to say that it was very kind of you to say all those kind words. But to begin with, namaskar to everybody. Good evening, good day, and greetings to one and all. Respected honored guests, and we start with our today's keynote guest speaker, Mr. Anil Lobo, our corporate dignitaries, academics, educators, distinguished gentlemen. We don't have any lady yet shown up, but on behalf of the J&A Bharat and J&A,
we have a lady as well by name Monica. She's our colleague. Welcome, Monica. Yes, go ahead.
Oh, wonderful. So you proved me wrong. So I'm really delighted to have welcome to the young lady with us. So on behalf of the J&A Bharat and J&A Global HSE Foundation's governance and its two founding trustees, a very warm welcome to you all. Now I would like to request Ashokji, who just opened the floor earlier, the founding trustee, to present an overview of the J&A Bharat and Global HSE Foundations. Everyone knows, just like he mentioned about me, but Ashokji is more well known to everyone globally for his remarkable contributions to HSE profession and for developing countless number of HSE professionals. He has made significant impact worldwide in saving lives and assets of the corporations and other privately. He is a director of BCSP, Board of Certified Safety Professionals, and I'm extremely happy and proud to announce that he has been recently elected as a vice president of BCSP, effective from January 1st, 2023, and he will be presiding the BCSP in 2024. He's holding various respectable positions with global HSE professional organizations, and in 2020, he was honored with the same highest fellow honor offered by American Society of Safety Professionals. Ashokji, the floor is yours, please.
Thank you very much, Jitu sir, for the kind words. And without wasting much time, we would like to continue with the brief introduction of our foundation, what it can offer you. So it's very brief, and we'll listen to our honorable speaker today. So today we are going to briefly talk about our contributions over 9 decades of our experience in HSE profession, Mr. Jitu as well as mine. As you see on the world map, we have the blue flags there. We have made such an impressive contribution to in different parts of the world, either through the ASSP or through the BCSP or through this foundation. So we just wanted to highlight on that. We wanted to bring back our expertise as well as our networking to the India as well. So as you see on the screen on the left side, which is from the ILO, which is the International Labour Organization, India is having the highest number of deaths related to the industrial accidents. The right side is the one which is during the COVID-19 period. We had many fatalities, many industrial accidents during that time. In fact, this idea of having the foundation, we conceived during the COVID-19 period itself. So we just conceived that. The idea is just to support the safety fraternity in India. And we have so many national regulations, like a national policy on safety, health, and environment at workplace. And it also recognizes safe and healthy working environment as a fundamental human right. So that's what we wanted to focus on, that everybody should get a safer workplaces. They should go back to the safely on every day. As per this national policy, the government of India engages and encourages with several national and international organizations in the field of coordination and collaboration, promoting education and awareness, technical standards, all these things, So we wanted to have some sort of a contribution in those areas through the international collaboration. Our main idea is think globally and act locally. And as you see on the screen, there is a UL, United Laboratories Index scale on the safety with respect to the state of safety. They have scored all the countries on 0 to 100, and 63rd is the Indian rank. We wanted to increase the score towards 100 through our contribution, whatever little contribution we can make. And today we are making a little contributions towards that end. And there is another development happened during the COVID-19 itself in India. The Occupational Safety, Health and Working Conditions Code 2019, it calls for the advisory bodies. Again, we wanted to contribute in that area as well. And we do have so many organizations in India. As I said, we established ASSP, we established BCSP, and they have got a good footprints in India. But how we are different than those organizations? these organizations are providing the professional support, but we wanted to give some sort of a mentoring support to the professionals, some sort of the financial support to the students who are participating in this HSE profession. That's what our idea. And we started our Bharat HSE Foundation on 25th March 2022. Again, virtually, everything is virtual nowadays. So we only believe the 4-pillar concept. We collaborate with the professional organizations. We recently tied up with the Safety Engineers Association. I'm sure Mr. Ulaganathan is in the participants, who is the founder of the Safety Engineers Association in Chennai. We just entered an MOU with them, and we also entering with collaborating with the corporate organizations, academic institutions like NICMAR. Professor Ramana is on the call, and individual and philanthropist organizations as well. So we will just collaborate with these organizations and support our our foundation's objectives. Again, we are just highlighting here that we are not a membership organization. It is a purely charity-oriented organization supporting the HSE profession. Our mission as well as vision and objectives are very clear. We just wanted to support the HSE profession through a mentoring support, knowledge transfer sessions, and financial support for the needy of the people. That's our main objective. And again, our objective is advancing the occupational safety, to support and promote occupational safety, to inspire and develop leaders. That's what we are doing today. And to provide educational developmental opportunities. That's what we are doing every month through knowledge transfer sessions, and recognize individuals, organizations, academic institutions, which is in the pipeline. We are developing plans for that, to get affiliated with any university, which already we have discussions in place for the NICMAR through our Professor Ramana. And we also have some sort of MOUs with the organizations having the similar objectives. So that's also one of the idea. And we do have our official website there, J&A Bharat HSE Foundation.org. We have 3 programs now currently running to support the profession. One is a professional development grant. Somebody wants to upgrade their skills, unable to have the financial support, we would like to support them. And another one is the Foundation Industrial Accident Victim Family Support. There are so many rules and regulations. Sometimes the victim's family does not get the financial support which they are supposed to get it. So we introduced that concept also in our foundation. And recently we launched the Keval Shanti scholarship program for the women students. Basically, there are a lot of details are there in our website. But any woman in the HSE profession wants to improve her skills through other professional development opportunities, they can apply for this also. And it's not only the scholarship and other things. There are so many professionals, they wanted to give it back to the profession. So we have the expression of interest form, and we just wanted to create a platform so that you can use this platform to support the fraternity. And of course, there's a contribution form also in the financial support as well. And we do have a governance body. We have the program chair, we have the student mentoring chair, community education chair. And if anybody wants to have a support to the profession through our organization on a voluntary basis, you are welcome to our foundation. And we have a governance body, as you see on the screen. We would like to have advocates. Today, Mr. Dakshinamurthy is participating. He's one of the advocates because he just shares the idea of this foundation through his contacts. Some people will be very busy, but you can be in a word of mouth, just share the information about this foundation through the corporate organizations, or as well as to the needy people also. And we wanted to expand our foundation to the outside India as well. So we launched the Global HSE Foundation through Rixio Medina, is a past president of ASSP, almost a month back, not even a month. So on 30th November 2022, the idea of this both foundations are same, working together and supporting back to India. Again, thinking globally, acting locally is our simple concept. That's what I just wanted to highlight on our foundation. And I just would like to highlight here that one of the foundation objective is knowledge transfer. Every month we are doing the one of the knowledge transfer session. And this month we are focusing on the communication and leadership skills. So that's our knowledge session today. Before I start the knowledge transfer session, mainly we are focusing on the communication and leadership skills for HSE professionals. I would like to request Mr. Jitu Saab for his a brief introduction about this particular topic with his personal experience. So Jitu.
Thank you, Ashok ji, for highlighting the foundation's objectives. Very briefly, I stress a point that the J&A Bharat and Global HSE Foundations are charitable organizations, and they are established to enhance the value of HSE profession and to help fulfill the dreams of deserving individuals to becoming fine HSE professionals and leaders who in turn, as Ashok ji mentioned, would make a safe nation and extend humanity to protect people, property, and environment globally. Ladies and gentlemen, we have expanded the mission and vision to work also based from United States under the name of J&A Global HSE Foundation. United States federal government, IRS, which is Internal Revenue Service, has granted the tax-exempt status of Section 501c3 tax deductible to all donors as a charitable HSE foundation. We also have completed establishing the websites now for both the foundations. So ladies and gentlemen, we are in the festive season of Christmas now with the right spirit of giving. Make a tax deductible donations, whether in India, in Indian rupees for the Bharat HSE Foundation or in the United States-based Global Foundation. Your gift today can make a big difference for the deserving young HSE students. If anyone wishing to pledge any scholarship or sponsorship support to the foundation, please indicate inserting your name, email, and a phone number in the chat box. You could also make an announcement later during socialization period. We will definitely follow up with you. So with that, it is my immense pleasure to introduce our foundation's strong support and contributor, Mr. K. Dakshinamurthy. He is an experienced electrical engineer with wide experience in electrical installations for several different types of industries. He has also worked in Kuwait for many years, and he's back in India, where he's actively involved making contributions in community services in different activities. I request him to introduce our honorable speaker, Mr. Anil Lobo, today. Mr. Dakshinamurthy ji, please.
Yeah, thank you, Jitu Bhai. I am very happy to introduce Mr. Anil Lobo. It's an honor to me. Mr. Lobo has worked as a head of the safety and security at Highly United Bank, Kuwait. He is a lead auditor, specializing in having a thorough and in-depth knowledge of OHSAS 18001 and ISO 9001 and Six Sigma Black Belt. For nearly 25 years, Mr. Anil Lobo is an international speaker on a variety of topics, making significant contributions as an active member of Toastmasters since 1999. Communication is a cornerstone of a good HSE professional. Failure to communicate their ideas and share the risk observed in the timely manner can result in injury, loss of life, or serious damage of assets. Mr. Lobo's presentation would be of value of HSE professional is undertaking the importance of a good communication skills, how to assertively express your observation in a timely manner, how to get a management support through the effective communication in determining what is important and urgent versus routine communication, and would provide the tools to achieve the greater heights of the team leader. Thank you. Mr. Anil Lobo, the floor is yours.
Mr. Anilji, whenever you want me to change the slide, I will do that. Okay.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Thank you, Krishnamurthy, for introducing me so nicely.
Thank you.
Now, my workshops are always interactive. So even though I cannot see you, you can still type. So when I ask you a few questions, please type in the chat box, whatever your answers come to your head, okay? And I'll try to keep it as humorous so you don't fall asleep. I know it's evening for some of you. Some of us have had a nice heavy meal. So let's start.
Yeah.
Communication. Let's ask everyone, at what age do you think we start communicating? Let's type over there. 1 week, 1 month, 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, 6 months. I want to see some answers. Okay, somebody put 6 months. Great. Anyone else would like to comment on this? There's no wrong answer, by the way. Yeah, 6 to 8 months. All right, that's nice. Okay. Oh, great. Immediate. When you're born. Yeah, very good. You're right.
He's the
You-
one, right?
Yeah. You start communicating from the moment you come out of your mother's womb. Now, ironically, initially, we don't understand what you're saying, but the mother over time picks it up. She knows when the baby is hungry. She knows when the nappies, the pamper has to be changed. She knows when the baby is cold. Over time, it becomes more formal. The kid starts pointing, this, mum, sleep. Vocabulary kicks in. And then the kid starts talking a little too much. Then they become teenagers. A lot of slang kicks in. And then not only what they say, it's their body language. They start doing things, tattoos, smoking, extension of their egos. And over time, after the university degree, they start asserting themselves as good leaders. So you see, can we go to the next slide? As you can see, we all start communicating. And now there are the 3 I's of communicating that I like to talk about. What are these 3 I's? First is the I, who I am. Who am I? Most of us here in this room, we are all HSE professionals. Few of us are not directly related in the HSE professional field, but are associated with it, maybe in support staff. Correct? Can any one of us tomorrow change our title and say, I want to be called doctor? I see Dinesh Kumar here. Dinesh will say, you know what? I don't want to be HSE anymore. Call me Dr. Dinesh Kumar Pal. Can that happen? No. The I, who I am, has taken years to develop. You have gone to college, you have gone to university, you have taken courses, you have developed a certain personality, a style of speaking, a certain leadership skill. That is defined as who you are. And the second I is the I that I'm projecting. Now, based on who you are projecting certain things. What are we projecting? We are projecting success, obviously, right? Is there anyone in this room? Give me a thumbs up if they're projecting failure. Oh, I'm a loser. No, I don't see anyone, right? Okay, I'm seeing in the chat, no one's giving a thumbs up saying, I'm a loser. No. Or I'm a failure. No, we all want to project success. And how do we project success? Have a nice car, have a nice home. We dress really well. So what are we communicating? We are communicating who I am. We are communicating basically our personality. I'm an engineer. I'm a doctor. I'm an HSE professional. I'm an accountant. I'm a housewife. We are projecting who exactly we are. This is where communication is very important, both verbal and non-verbal. And I'll come to that in a while. And the third part is the I that I'm being perceived. How am I being perceived? Am I being perceived as honest, trustworthy? Or am I being perceived as someone who kind of takes a shortcut, cuts corners? You know, there are some organizations that we know, they get fined, they get penalized because they don't want to do things by the book. They want to take shortcuts. Is that who we are? Now, I'm going to use this as an analogy. There's only, I think, 2 or 3 women in this room. So men, I think this is more for you. Imagine I'm a young, handsome man. I'm 21 years old, okay? I walk into a nice bar and there's a beautiful lady sitting right across. I know who I am, right? I'm young, I'm single, and it's a weekend. It's a Friday night. In the US, it's a Friday night is a holiday. In India, it's a holiday, or it's a weekend, coming around. So what do? I walk up to this beautiful girl and I try to introduce myself. And I say, hey, lady, you look beautiful. Do you know who I am? And she looks at me with a blank stare. Now, what am I projecting? I'm projecting, I'm a young, handsome man, and I want to ask her out. And then I say, do you know who I am? And she turns around and says, I don't know who you are exactly, but I know you work for my husband, who is your boss. Slam, right? What are you being perceived as? Being perceived as a subordinate. So this is exactly how I, who am projecting, I, who am being perceived, can sometimes be different. If who you are and who you're projecting is correct, then you don't have miscommunication. If who you are and who you're being perceived is incorrect, then you have miscommunication. So if you hear words like this saying, no, this is not what I said. Oh, please, you misunderstood me. Why do you not understand what I'm saying? That means there is a gap between what you're projecting and how you're being perceived. This miscommunication gap is what we are addressing today, because this is very important for us as HSE professionals. As a HSE professionals, we are identifying some potential risks, identifying hazards, and we are trying to find ways to mitigate these risks. If we cannot communicate ideas and our thought process clearly, and we cannot lead a group of individuals, we are in a way failures. So now let's understand the two types of communication. For this, let's go to the next slide. The two types of communication are basically verbal and non-verbal. Now, I'm not going to spend too much time on the verbal part because we know what it is. It's a vocabulary, a grammar, a pronunciation, enunciation, a dialect, and so forth. We know each person by the way they speak, correct? The next is the pitch, how high you are, how low you are, the rate and the speed in which you speak. When you're excited, what do? You speak really fast. Now imagine if you witness a car accident. Will you talk a little slow? You'll say, oh my God, there was a car accident. Something happened and so. You'll be so excited. Will you show the same excitement if there's a failure? Imagine you fail your 12th standard board exam and you go to your parents. Would you ever say, guess what, Dad, Mom, I failed? No, you'll talk in a little different manner. Your pitch is going to be much lower. The rate at which you're speaking is much lower. And the same thing applies when we're reporting incidents. When we want to show some excitement, that means something that needs urgent action. We know how to communicate. Now, the first part, the verbal part, I don't need to spend much time on. The second part is very important because this is where we need to put some emphasis. Gestures are very important. We have our facial gestures as well as our hand gestures and our body gestures. These tend not to lie. Have you ever seen this happen? Somebody suddenly surprises you. They go, boo. What do? What happens to your face? Your face immediately goes, a sense of shock comes in your face. Am I right? Why does this happen? This happens because you are surprised and your natural reflexes kick in. The same thing happens to our hands. Now imagine, I'm going to ask all of you in this room, imagine that there is a fire right now. And let's say the fire is right that side. That's to my left. And I say, fire, fire, guys, fire. What does my gestures show? Up. You don't look up. But if I had to point to where the fire was, you would all look at that place and take action. If I say run in this direction and I point to my right, you will follow me in that direction. But if I point here and I say, follow me to the left, you would confuse people. So you see, miscommunication can also take place with our gestures. We have to be very conscious of how our body gestures, our hand gestures, our facial expressions can, in a way, affect people, especially when you are in the safety field. The next is eye contact. Now, eye contact is very important, especially for us as Indian professionals. We forget that people in the West, they look at our eyes and they say the eyes gauge your truthfulness, your honesty. Now, for the women in here, especially the Indian women, this is a little bit of a challenge because sometimes we tend to look down, not only Indian women, even men, Indian men, when you're talking to people with authority, we tend to look down as a sign of respect. We avoid to make eye contact. And sometimes it's perceived as you're being not truthful. So we have to be very careful about our eye contact. Make sure that you look at the person who you're talking to. and maintain eye contact, but don't stare too long, because then they'll say, is something wrong with me? Do I have something on my face? So we have to balance it right. And finally, our stance, how we stand, our posture, that projects our confidence level. If you're a safety professional and you are a little timid and not sure of what you're doing, do you expect others to follow you? I don't think so, right? You have to be confident. You have to be assertive. If I tell you as a safety officer that there is a fire and let's go, I don't want anyone to question me, because I am the authority. I'm telling you to leave. Similarly, if I'm telling you, stop work right now, suspend work and reassemble at a certain point, there is a reason why I'm telling you this. And as a safety professional, people expect me to be a leader. And that's where the non-verbal communication is as important as what you're saying. So your stance, your movement, your gestures, your eye contact, these all in a way encapsulate on your personality, on who you are. Now that you know who you are and you're trying to project, let's understand how we project ourselves. Let's get to the next slide, please. If I'm going a little too fast, please type in the chat box saying, hey, slow down, Anil, you're too fast, and I'll definitely slow down. Now, there are three formal styles of communication, or three different styles of communication. Okay, great, thank you. The first is what we call peer-to-peer. Now, what is peer-to-peer? For those of you who have done toolbox talks, that is basically a peer-to-peer communication. You're very casual. You're on a first name basis. So if I want to talk to, let's say, Carl, and say, hey, Carl, no, Mr. Carl, we're on a first name basis. If it's Monica, I'm like, hi, Monica, not hi, Mrs. Monica, or hi, Mrs. David. Why are we casual? Because we are on a same level, both in terms of experience-wise and probably also in social level. And that's when the most amount of communication takes place. We share opinions, we discuss things frankly, since it is not structured. There is no hierarchy as such, although there is to a certain extent, certain amount of hierarchy. We don't use formal structure. We use things like, hey, what's up? How are you? Hey, all good. That's fine. Let's look into this tomorrow. So peer-to-peer communication is where most of the informal communication takes place. The second is when you talk to your superior. Now, when you're talking to a superior, you're more structured, you're more formal. Can you imagine walking up to your CEO and saying, yo, dude, what's happening? How's the wifey and the kids? He's probably going to look at you and say, what's wrong with you? Why? Because the hierarchy is such that you have to talk with little respect. You knock on the door and say, good morning, sir. May I come in? Your style of communication is immediately changed from peer-to-peer. Peer-to-peer, you don't take permission if you want to go to the bathroom. You just walk up to the bathroom and you use it. But when you're in a formal setting, you excuse yourself when you have to get out of the room to answer a phone call or to use the restroom or so forth. Now, the third style is when you're talking to a subordinate. Now, imagine, let's say Ira is my subordinate. If I say, Ira, what do you think? Should we stop the welding right now because I heard the fire alarm ring? What will she say? Nah, ignore you. I'll continue my work. I'm on the clock. I'm being paid to do the work. When you talk to subordinates, you have to talk with authority. You have to tell her, Ira, stop the work. We need to leave. There is a crisis. So when you're talking to subordinates, if you don't talk with authority and you don't speak with assertiveness, people will tend to ignore you. So now let's understand these three styles. Peer-to-peer is where you share a lot of information. There's no master and there's no subordinate. When you're talking to your superior, you're talking to management, you're giving formal reports, you're more structured, you're more organized, and to a certain extent, a little more humble. When you're talking to your subordinates, you tend to speak with authority. You don't have to raise your voice. You don't have to shout at them. You just speak with confidence and authority. So rather than asking for their opinion, like you will do with your peers or with your superiors, here you'll say, I would like you to do this. I want to see this. I would like, and I would expect this result. And this, in a way, you will understand is what the hierarchy is. Now that we have talked about the first part, which is the verbal and non-verbal, we've talked about the three levels of hierarchy. Let's understand how we really communicate. And for this, let's get to the next slide. I have, by the way, patented this because most people now use iPhones, iPad, iTunes, iPods, whatever. And I call this the iPie. Not apple pie, not any other pie, it's iPie. The I, the first I stands for to inform. We always speak to inform. We communicate to inform. Now you understood in the previous slide, the 3 levels of information, peer-to-peer, where you have a lot more information being shared. When you're giving information to your superiors, you have to be succinct. In other words, you don't have all the time. You have to be quick and brief on what you want to say. And when you're talking to subordinates, you speak with authority. So you're informing people around you. How you want to hear more on how I am being perceived. Okay, very good. I'll get to that in a while. Let me finish with the how do we communicate? Okay, great. So first part is the inform. You have a lot of information, but you have to give it in a nice manner, which is received well. Now, in an old-fashioned way, we use what we call broadcasting. I say, give you tons and tons of information, and let us hope at least 10-20% you perceive, you have absorbed, and you'll digest. But in today's world, when you inform, you want acknowledgement. So you will use things like this. Arun, do you agree with me? Arun, do you accept that? Musa, what do you think? Shall we proceed? Monica, have you got that information that I just give you? So what's happening is when you give information, you want to validate that the person has heard it and has agreed with you. So that is why when you give information, you want confirmation. And that is why communication is different from broadcast. Television broadcast, radio broadcast. The radio cannot get feedback whether people have listened to you or not. But we have to constantly ensure that the audience is listening to what we are saying. So that's the first part, is to give information. But now, how do we give this information? And for this, we get to the next one, which is to persuade. Now, to persuade is basically to intellectually change a person's opinion. Now, how do you change a person's opinion intellectually? There's only one way. You talk to them with logic. So when you're giving information, especially as a safety professional, you will give statistics, facts, some numbers that they can digest. So when you're doing a talk, like say you're doing a peer-to-peer talk, a toolbox talk, you will tell them, listen, this is one of the big risks we're doing. Right now, we're shutting down the pipeline, and this is the leading cause of problems. And this is based on a statistical facts, or so-and-so information is being shared with you. People are now going to believe you. Because why? You're giving them information which is a basis of 3 things. One is, it is verifiable. The second, it is reliable. What is the verifiable part? You can verify it by going on the net or through books. Reliable is what? The source that they're giving it to you is from a place that you can check. And third is credible. Credible is what? It's not what your grandmother told you or what your friends have told you. It is somewhere that is from a source that you can, in a way, go back to. If these 3 factors are not met, then you will not be able to persuade with authority. If 2 of them are only met, you will be able to probably persuade them, but not as with conviction. And if it's only 1, tough luck, my friend. As a safety professional, you will not be able to convince the person to persuade him to take action. So you have to meet all the 3 requirements. Now, since you're talking to the intellect, don't overwhelm them with a lot of information. If you give them too much information, we call this information overload. What's going to happen? The person will go, oh my God, time out, please. It's too much info. So you have lost the person. He's tuned out. He's doodling, he's daydreaming, or worst of all, he's checking on his WhatsApp messages because you have tuned him out. So when you're informing the person, try to persuade them by giving them as little information as possible. I can see you are on raise hand, please send your inquiry and lower your hand. Okay. The third one is inspire. Now, inspiration is when you talk to somebody's heart. And usually inspirational talks take place when it's a peer-to-peer communication. Persuasion takes place when you're persuading somebody or you're trying to convince management to fund your project. You're trying to tell the management that this has to be done and the urgency in which it has to be done. And you give them a lot of information, statistics, information, facts, figures, a nice little report, maybe even an executive summary. But when you're trying to persuade your co-workers to take some action, it's going to be inspirational. Now, I'll give an example. I know Sunil, so I'll say, suppose now Sunil, I'm trying to tell him, and this is, by the way, something that happened a couple of years ago when we were in Dehradun. If I tell Sunil, this place is very slippery, and in the last 1 week, 3 people have slipped and fallen, and worst that can happen is you can hit your head and probably end up in the hospital. And by the way, Sunil did fall down in Dehradun, and he was taken to the hospital. But unfortunately, at that time, we did not know that this was a safety issue or a safety hazard. Now, if I had to tell him this, he would say, Anil, thank you for this information. I will look into this. But now if I tell him, I know 2 people, I know a guy named Dinesh, you remember a friend? Last week, he fell down and he was in the hospital for 2 days. Immediately, what Sunil will do? He will be inspired. He'll say, oh God, Sunil, Dinesh, I know him. He also fell down here. So what has happened is I have persuaded him by talking intellectually, by giving him statistics, facts, and figures. And I've also given him something emotional because he knows Dinesh. Dinesh is his friend too. And now he is a little more convinced. He'll walk a little carefully because this is a slippery area. There is a hazard. So what we have done, we have informed, we have persuaded, and we have inspired them to take action. So it's a combination of all these 3 that are needed. And what's the last one? The E for entertainment. If you are not lively enough, if you don't have a lot of charisma, and by the way, entertainment doesn't mean jokes. The person shouldn't laugh off and fall off the chair. That doesn't mean entertainment. Okay, that is one form of entertainment. Entertainment can be a horror movie, right? We get entertained by horror movies. Some of us at least do. Some of us get entertained by romantic movies. Some of us by great stories, a nice testimonial. So there are different types of entertainment. We have to see which is suitable for the audience that we're talking to. If it's a toolbox talk, we have to keep it lively and entertaining. Some jokes, some humor. But when you're talking to management, if you use the same humor, I don't think it's going to cut ice. So we have to be, our stories have to be slightly more different. They have to have, it has to be more graceful and more stoic. Similarly, when you're talking to people below you, your subordinates, you would like to be casual and say, Bhaiya, don't do this. I don't want you to end up in the hospital. I don't want to be the one telling your wife that you got injured during my watch. So you're trying to be humorous with him without being too funny. So these are the 3 or 4 ways of communicating. Now, somebody asked me, let's talk a little bit more about the I that I'm projecting and I that I'm being perceived. Sometimes we project confidence, but how are we being perceived? We're not being perceived as being honest. There's a mismatch between what we're saying verbally and what our body is talking. And this mismatch sometimes could be intentional, sometimes it's accidental, sometimes it could be cultural also. Like I gave you an example. We as Indians, we tend to look down when we're talking to a big boss, the CEO of an organization. Oh my God, I cannot look him straight in the eye. I'll put my hand down. I will repeatedly call him sir, sir, Dinesh, sir, good morning, sir, sir, sir. And then what people say, that man, he doesn't know what he's saying. He's not a safety manager. I think he's just a safety officer. I am projecting that there is some action to be taken, but I'm being perceived as somebody insignificant, someone to be just brushed aside. This is very important when we are trying to make presentations to management, especially a budget approval to management. I'm projecting that we need this money. What am I being perceived? A guy who's just spending money just because he needs to use his budget and the end of the year is coming to an end. So this projecting and perceiving mismatch is what we're trying to bridge. We know who we are. We think we know what we are projecting, but we have to understand that are we being perceived the same way as we are projecting? And this mismatch is very important. This is where you'll keep hearing people say, no, you misunderstood me. No, that's not what I meant. No, that's not what I requested. What is wrong with you? When you use these words, then you truly know something is wrong. So now with this said and done, is there any further questions or can I proceed?
Yes, Anil, Partha here. The question,
Okay.
how I am perceived.
Correct. Please, can you ask the question again?
In the first two slides, you explained one of the things, how I am perceived is important thing. Can you more brief about that one, some examples? Because whenever
Very
we
good.
speak, what others to think about us, we keep inside ours.
See, here it is how we're being perceived is basically when we are saying something, are we on the same wavelength? In other words, I'll give an example right now. I'm requesting management. Like, let's say now Jitu Patel is management. And I say, Mr. Patel, my budget is $50,000 to do training. I have spent $40,000 and I have only $10,000 for the next 6 months. Can I have an extra $30,000? So the first thing Jitu will ask me, he'll say, Anil, as a safety manager, we allocated $50,000 budget. What happened to it? Sir, we spent it all. We did training, we spent it all. Now I have given information. What is the information? I told him verbally that I informed him that we used the budget. I told him I want more money. And I said, please, I'm convinced, give me the money. And what he's saying, Anil, no, I feel you have spent more than you should have because I have not convinced him that I need the extra money. Now imagine if I had to tell him, sir, you had given me a budget of 50,000. I spent 40. And there's a reason why. You see, remember in the month of Jan and Feb, we had these incidents and we had to retrain our staff. And you remember in the month of March, we hired new people. We hired 7 new staff who were not from our industry. We spent a lot of time and money training them. Plus, during the lockdown, we had this and this and this had to be done, and certain funds were diverted. Now what has happened? I have projected why I need the extra money. What will Jitu say? What you have projected and what I have perceived now matches. In other words, yes, you have spent your money wisely, and I perceive that you need the money more. Sometimes we project certain things, or we think we're projecting certain things, but we're not being perceived in the same manner. A very good example of this I will use in a casual manner. We walk up to a beautiful girl and we project like as if we're nice and handsome and we're very well-dressed, well-groomed, clean shaved. And the girl looks at us and she thinks, oh my God, this guy's a jerk. He's hitting on me big time. I want to push him away. I want to just mingle away from him. And they will go and stay somewhere where they feel safe. So you're projecting that you're a good man, but you're being perceived as someone who's a jerk. So this mismatch is very important. And you will understand this more as I get to the next slide. If you still have any questions, I will answer that after that. Is that good with you?
Yes, thank you, Anil.
Great. So now that we understood, let's get to the next slide, which is the communication for HSE professionals. Now, this is very important. We communicate incidents, near misses, and sometimes even accidents where there's either some damage to the property or loss of life. Now, how do we communicate? We communicate on a peer-to-peer level. We talk casually. If there's a near miss, we'll see what's the root cause, what's the problem, correct? Not only do we look at the root cause, we also identify what is the impact of this on the organization. So we discuss this with peers. We don't take this decision unilaterally ourselves. So when we are talking about this, we share information. This information highway has to be always kept open when it's a peer-to-peer communication. Now, you cannot go to the CEO of the organization and say, sir, there was a near miss incident. When the car was reversing, he almost hit the metal pole where it says no parking. What do you think I should do? What will the CEO tell you? He'll say, could you discuss this with your team lead? So here, Communication is very important on how you communicate on the peer-to-peer level. When you communicate to management, it has to be in an executive summary format. In other words, something that they can read and digest. Now, remember, management are not necessarily safety professionals. So you have to avoid technical jargon. So avoid things which are norms in the safety industry, but he's lost at loss of words. If you talk about lockout or tag out, or shutting down certain valves and use certain technical lingo, and they don't understand, he'll say, what is this? This report is gibberish to me. So you remember the earlier part, what I'm projecting and how I'm being perceived? They will look and say, okay, this report is not important. I will keep it aside, or I will shelve it. So when we're talking to management, we have to be very succinct. We have to be concise. We have to use the least amount of words in our memo. And also when we speak, we have to speak in a very concise manner. We not only have to, persuade, but we have to also inspire. Here, the persuasion is more important when we're trying to persuade management. Inspiration is more for the peer-to-peer communication. Now, the third part of our communication as safety professionals is to the public. Sometimes people will ask for our opinion. They will ask, what was the impact? There was a leak. Your factory caused this problem. There was a gas leak. What happened? We have to be careful with our words because we don't want to scare people. And that's, again, perception. There are some organizations that are perceived as being polluting, although they're not. And finally, we need to have some action to change. So this action for change is what? Whenever we speak, we communicate, there has to be an end result. We don't speak just because we have to waste time. You remember when I was talking about the toolbox communication, it is not just a statutory requirement that you have to have this toolbox talks, but it is to basically tell people to be aware of certain things. Each time that there's a talk, we'll talk about a specific topic. If there's a shutdown, a factory shutdown, because they're, say, changing a transformer or they're bleeding a line, the safety manager or the safety officer will speak specifically on this and say, be careful of this, make a note of these 3 or 4 items. And that is where we as communicators in the safety industry are very important. If we don't communicate certain issues, they can lead to not only damage to property, but even loss of life. Or worst, somebody is injured and crippled for the rest of his life, which is equally bad. Because if they're the bread earner, now not only they are unable to earn money, but the family who was expecting them to give money is now supporting their lifestyle. Imagine a person getting blind because he didn't use goggles, or imagine his right hand is severed because he was not using proper gloves. Now let's get to the next slide. And this is something that I'm sure all of you will want to know. How can we grow as safety professionals? Now, as safety professionals, communicating incidents to management is very important. Peer-to-peer communication is very easy. I said this is the most easy form of communication. It's colloquial, it's casual. How we submit our budgets and get the budgets approved by management, that is very important. What is the use of just writing reports and nobody's reading them and they're just being filed? And then when an incident takes place, suddenly they come up to you and say, you are the safety officer. Why couldn't you solve the problem? And then you say, but sir, did you see my report last week? Did you hear what I said? Did you see my emails that I sent across? And if you cannot communicate incidents effectively to management, to a large extent, you will not be able to be successful in life. Use layman's terminology, especially when you're talking to management. When you're talking to co-workers, it's very simple. But layman's terminology when you're talking to your co-workers, but when you're talking to management, you avoid technical jargon. So it's very important that you use certain proper terminology. Electrical engineers will use certain terminology, welders will use different terminology, and so forth. And the third thing is be assertive. If you're not assertive as a safety officer, how will others listen to you? How will others believe in you? Now, being assertive doesn't mean being dominant. You have to listen to what others are saying, because God has given us 2 ears and 1 tongue. So you have to listen to what others are saying, but then speak with authority and with confidence. You have to provide constructive feedback and suggestions, not just criticism. My 11-year-old daughter can find problems. If I tell her, go to the kitchen, baby, and go tell me what are some of the problems, she'll say, oh, Dada, the knife is a big hazard, or the kitchen counter is a hazard, the electrical kettle is a hazard. Everyone can find problems, but safety professionals not only identify problems, but give suggestions. Give at least 2 or 3 suggestions and let management decide which is the best suggestion. And by that, you can give financial costs, time in which it'll take to resolve the issue, as well as how it can be implemented with the minimum amount of disruption to operations. Remember, the CEOs and top management, they're looking at the money lost by investing in this. Until there is an incident, nobody takes you seriously. But after there is an incident, all the blame comes at you. The next one is to gain trust and respect. As a safety professional, not only your co-workers must trust you and respect you, even management. When you go and submit a budget, when you give a report, a technical report, or a summary report, a quarterly, weekly, monthly, or whatever report, they have to believe in you and trust in you that what you're saying is true. There is nothing hidden. There's nothing that you have kind of, in a way, cheated or lied or exaggerated. You have to be honest and straightforward. And communicating this is very important. We as safety professionals constantly have to learn. There are things there are advancements in technology. And if you don't take these courses and study and work for it, we will not be able to implement it in the workplace. I remember one of my bosses telling me, if you do not sharpen the axe, the woodcutter has to work longer hours to cut the number of trees. Sharpen your axe frequently, sharpen the blade so that you work the same number of hours and produce better results. Highlight your achievements. Let management, let your co-workers know what you have achieved on a regular basis. Now, don't brag. Don't keep patting yourself on the shoulder saying, I did this, it was my work. Acknowledge your team members, how the team worked, and how you as a team leader, as a safety professional, ensured that we had 100 or 500 or 1,000 days of incident-free work. And finally, be honest. Communicate and be honest. If you don't know something, be straight and tell people, I do not know, but let me find out. Let me check. Let me inquire. But if you try to fib and try to kind of worm your way out of a situation, you have lost trust, respect, and integrity. So now let's wrap up the whole presentation by understanding the 3 I's. The I, who I am, the I, who I'm projecting myself, my confidence, my knowledge, my wisdom. I, that I'm being perceived. Am I being misunderstood? Am I being perceived as being trustworthy and honest? The 2 types of communication, the verbal and the non-verbal. Again, the verbal is not only your words and grammar and vocabulary, but also your pronunciation, your rate of speaking, the speech, the pauses that you have. The non-verbal is basically our gestures, our eye contact, our stance. And then finally, we learn the 3 different levels of communication: peer-to-peer communication, when you're talking to top management, when you're talking to subordinates. Remember, when you're talking to a mechanic for your car, and if you go and tell him, Mr. Mechanic, how much do you think you're going to charge me to repair this small little leak? And he'll like, oh, sir, it's just going to cost you $5,000. And your car doesn't cost you more than $2,000. So you see, you have to speak with confidence. You say, I'll tell him, listen, I want the car fixed within the next 2 hours, and I'm not going to pay you more than $50 for it. How do we communicate? The I-PI method. We inform, we persuade, we inspire, and we entertain. And finally, what is it in for our HSE professionals when we communicate? We communicate with peers, with management, with public, and we communicate incidents. We are assertive. We don't use layman technology with top management. We know how to avoid technical jargon. We give constructive feedback. We gain trust and respect. And the trust and respect is through our honesty. We constantly learn new things. We have to keep, learning and unlearning sometimes and relearning new things. We highlight our achievements, especially to our top management. And finally, we acknowledge our team members, because without our team members, we cannot achieve much. Messi, he led the team to success, the Argentine team to success. But imagine if he was playing all by himself. He was the only player. Do you think Argentina would have won the World Cup? It's a team effort. So just because he was a striker and because he led the team to success doesn't mean that he is the only one who led the team. It was the whole group. It was just not one man show. So with this, I would like to conclude my presentation and throw the floor open to questions. And if you have any questions, please type them in the box, shout them out, and I will try to answer them as quickly as possible.
Mr. Lobo, we thank you for this great presentation. But before we open the question answer session, in support of your presentation, which was extraordinary, I learned a lot. I would like to mention an example of a direct cause of failure to communicate resulted into a massive process plant fire that destroyed the entire facility and also had several severe burn injuries, including fatality. This happened when an outgoing operator in a hydrocarbon industry failed to enter certain unfinished procedural requirements that needed to be followed by an incoming shift operator. The new shift operator checked the logbook and he saw no instructions left for him to follow up. He therefore assumed that the previous shift must have completed the task and went on to the next step of the plant operations. A few minutes later, the plant suffered spewing fountains of hot hydrocarbon crude landing on to the rotating equipment like pumps, compressors, and so many others located on the grade level. Thereby, spontaneously generated hydrocarbon vapor air mixture was ignited, resulting into massive fire engulfing the entire plant that had ongoing spewing of hot crude oil as a fuel. Unfortunately, the plant operators and the maintenance workers in the areas became victims of this very hot crude oil as well as the fire, injuring them to the extent of fatality. This could have been avoided if only, and I use if only the outgoing operator had entered the up-to-date information of what has gone and what has been done by that shift and what needed to be done by the oncoming shift. Also, the incoming operators, which is the new shift operators, should not have made an assumption on the hazardous activities until the reality is verified as facts. This is where what you really explain, variety of different ways, that the proper and correct communication makes a lot of difference. In this case, almost $700+ million 30 years ago was the damage done, plus several fatality and several injuries resulted, which was very, very sad. And it was attributed solely on no communication or miscommunication, as well as not doing the right thing, as there was no communication, no follow-up, no verification, etc. So your presentation is of tremendous value. With that, let's move on further. And I would like to now introduce our Mr. Sunil Sadanand ji, who would conduct a question answer session for this webinar. Sunil ji is an astute HSE professional and a passionate Toastmaster. He is also same as Anil, Mr. Lobo, a Toastmaster. He is an area director in Toastmasters International and also a member of the advisory committee of American Society of Safety Engineers Kuwait chapter. He has served as president, vice president, secretary, and treasurer of ASSP of Kuwait chapter, which is the largest chapter outside the United States. He's also an expert on ISO 9001 quality management system he is certified in. He is the pioneer of the HSE Kuwait Toastmasters Club. So Sunilji, please conduct the question answer session, please.
Sunilji, floor is yours. But before that, I just want to congratulate you for getting the double awards from the chapter from the Region 9 just 2 days back. So please join me in congratulating Sunilji.
Wonderful.
Yes, yes.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Jitubai, for wonderfully explaining my profile. And also, thank you, Ashokji. It was yesterday, day before yesterday, we got that 2 awards together. Thanks to all our mentors, Jitubai, Ashokji, and Anil, for all that support. Because of your support and guidance, I could able to make it. Now, let's move to the question and answer session. I can see one question which has been raised by our Mr. Dakshinamurthy. Mr. Anil, please explain how safety professionals can communicate with all electrical and mechanical and other departments to get the job done safely. That's a very specific one. Anil, do you have any thoughts on this?
Yes, it's what you have spoken about is very important, because electrical departments and mechanical department, mechanical engineers, electrical engineers, sometimes they don't see eyeball to eyeball. Electricals are more interested in electrical short circuits, lockout, tag out. They are very straightforward. You just put a little tag and that's it. Whereas with mechanical, there are a lot of other things that can happen. There's pressures. There could be hazardous chemicals, gases, and so forth. An electrical engineer will not understand the difference between a volatile compound and just a normal, oil leak or something. So how do you communicate risks to each other? And for this, you have to explain and be very concise. You cannot, obviously, an electrical engineer will not learn everything that a mechanical engineer would have understood in 5 minutes. So you have to talk very specific. You tell them, okay, we are doing so-and-so work. Document on a piece of paper. You will write down on a piece of paper all the risks involved. Hand them over to the gentleperson and then say, these are the 7 critical issues. First one, second one, third one, fourth one. Please review this. Explain to him in a very concise manner, and then say, you have any questions, come back to me. If not, my colleague, my co-worker. You have to ensure that it's been validated. You remember the part I told you about broadcasting? If you have a toolbox talk and say, okay, guys, we're doing this, thank you very much. And the mechanical engineer will say, okay, great. And then after he walks out, you're like, what did he say? Validate, ask him, do you understand what the lockout, tagout process is? It might be different from electrical and mechanical. So you have to be very specific and get feedback from them that they have understood. If the feedback loop is not closed, consider that the briefing is not completed. And not only this happens with electrical and mechanical, it could happen with any other fields. It could happen if you're talking to an electrician who you are speaking in clear English and he doesn't understand English. Maybe he's from India and he's from a part of India that even Hindi is not his first language, and you're speaking to him in Hindi. In the Middle East, I know we have Egyptians and Arab nationals. So when you talk to them, you have to be careful that you use the right vocabulary. So it is not just what we say, it's the vocabulary, the language. Make sure that you get feedback from them that they have understood the risks that are associated with this activity that you're doing before you proceed with that activity. And it is not only electrical, mechanical, it could be any fields. It could be with a welder, it could be working at heights, it could be working with hazardous chemicals, it could be in confined spaces. So we have to be very careful that the loop is closed. If you don't close the loop, consider that the briefing is not completed. I hope I've answered that question.
Thank you, Anil. Thank you, Anil, for specifically answering that particular question. Next, we have one more question right now. Please share resources on certification programs for safety professionals to enhance their communication and leadership skills.
Okay, to answer that question, I would like to know which part of the world are you in?
That's by our foundation member only. They are here in Kuwait as well as US and India.
Okay. See, the right thing I will tell you to do is get the certification that's relevant in your country. If you live in the United States, ASSP certification is a very powerful and very important documentation. If you're living in Europe and in other parts of the world, you have to look at what's relevant. I know in the UK, there are different, there's NEBOSH, and there's different types of certification. In India, there might be different certification. See what is relevant, not only in your country, but also in your industry. Why will you want to get a generic certification when you are in a specific field? If you're working in oil and gas, you want to get certification in that field. A very good resource that you will have is ASSP. Just reach out to ASSP and say, okay, I'm in this field. I'm a safety professional. Tell me what are the certification that will help me in my career. And there is an outreach office in ASSP. I'm sure Ashok will be able to help out, as well as Sunil, and maybe even Jitu will be able to help out more on this. And they will tell you how there are organizations out there which will help you not only just get certified, but also select which certification is most suitable for you and your career path that you're taking. And correct me if I'm wrong, Ashok, Sunil, as well as Jitu.
Yes, of course, that's rightly said, Anilji. And of course, the question was specific to the communication and the leadership skills. Of course, what you mentioned is related to the profession, but
Okay.
the question is related to the communication. Of course, that's what is the question. Yeah.
Okay. On that part, see, that's very important is I would tell you to join an organization called Toastmasters.
Okay.
Toastmasters is a forum that teaches you how to communicate your ideas in a very concise manner. It teaches you not only how the verbal communication, but also the body language. There are projects that you will be doing both individually and as well as in teams. There is one specific project called the HPL, or High Performance Leadership Project, where you have to work with people, with co-workers, with peers. It could be someone in your specific field or someone outside your field. And this, you learn how to collaborate. You learn how to work and be time conscious. You learn how to organize and delegate. You learn how to prioritize, set goals. I'm sure you've heard of the SMART goal concept. These are all the skills that are needed for a safety professional. Because if you just have few of the skills, yes, you will be probably successful, but you will not get all the rewards. The greatest reward that you will be getting is financial reward, but also recognition, the ability to save lives, the ability to change and to be a positive contributor to the community. So Toastmasters is a very inexpensive program. There are several other courses that are being offered through Dale Carnegie's programs and several other programs, which are almost maybe 5-10 times more expensive, but they're also worth looking into. But Toastmasters is the most cost-effective method.
Thank you, Sunilji. Yes.
Thank you, Anil. Let's see any more questions are there, or if you would like to open the mic and ask, also is okay, as we are in the last minutes of the QA session.
I see there are some members who are joined us from Netherlands. We have Rocky Fernandez also from Netherlands. He's and I don't know the rest of the people. Monica was there from Kuwait, but she's gone. We'd like to hear from different people.
Certainly. We have a friend from US called Hein Lin. So he's our ASSP board of director member, past board member. And he is also very good in communication and leadership. He was, in fact, my mentor. ASSP introduced a leadership development program through the mentors. So he was my mentor. And today I'm sitting here because of his mentorship. Thank you, Carl.
That's great. That's great. See, when you talk about communication skills, there is one person that I would like to talk about is Dinesh Kumar.
Yes, absolutely.
I remember when Dinesh joined Toastmasters, a couple of years ago, I think 4 years ago, he could not complete his first project. He kind of fumbled. He was not sure, but he never gave up. See, that's the important thing about being a good communicator. You don't give up. And today I see him taking a lot of leadership roles. He's timers. He's organizing behind the scenes. He's in several committees. His ideas are really respected and taken seriously by lots of senior Toastmasters also. How did he achieve this? And by the way, English is not his native language. In fact, he confided in me as well as several other people. You have to persevere. You have to put in a SMART goal and you have to work towards it. And communication is what has made him successful today. It is not only hard work, it is smart work. His work's really smart. And there's a reason why I asked to highlight Dinesh, is because although I was his mentor, he has influenced me and touched me. And sometimes I use his example here, even in India. And I keep telling people, just because you don't speak English very well doesn't mean one day you cannot lead a team. You can lead a team even though you don't speak the language. You lead by also body language. 80% of our communication is non-verbal, 70 to 80%. So you can lead a team without having body language. Look at our security guards. How many of them speak English? How many can write a report? But when a security guard tells you that there is a safety incident and we all assemble at a specific point, we all go there, we follow him, we trust him. If he tells us to park in a specific area, we listen to him. Why? He's a leader. So communication is not just linguistics. It is acquired and it is done the way Dinesh has done it.
I now would like to take this opportunity to thank our dear friend, Mr. Sunil Ji, for conducting this question answer session very effectively. And Mr. Lobo, you have answered every single question and even comments you saw on the chat box, for which we thank you very, very much. And I would ask our Ashok Ji to make some concluding remarks, please.
Thank you, Jit Saab, and it's glad to know that our Anil is a very dynamic Toastmaster as well as a leader. I used to spend our good times here in Kuwait, but we never left here, left our connections when he went back to India also. But thanks for his time. It's almost 10 p.m. in India, but his energy levels are very high. We would like to thank him for coming over here today and sharing the leadership as well as communication skills. Thank you, Mr. Anil. And of course, our strong supporter of the foundation, Mr. Dakshinamurthy, as well as our friend, as well as colleague, Mr. Sunil, whom we always meet here in Kuwait. They said, yes, when Anil is coming, why not? So we'll join you today and give a support to the community. So thank you very much, Sunil and Dakshinamurthy, for joining today. And our motto is, let's give back to create a safer tomorrow. And your support to the foundations helps in fulfilling its objective of helping the HSE fraternity and beyond. As we just want to thank our foundation's supporters, donors. These are the foundation donors for the Bharat HSE Foundation. And these are the donors for the Global HSE Foundation. Our continuous efforts are being put up in the form of the knowledge transfer sessions on monthly basis. We educate, we entertain, as well as we give back our knowledge to the people. So if anybody wants to give their knowledge to the community, please reach out to us or just leave a message in the chat box. We'd like to have your presence in one of the future sessions. Mr. Carl Heinlein, he already shown his support. One of the month he'll be there in the future as a subject matter experts in the construction safety field. So please hold on for that announcement. And with that, I would like to give back to Mr. Jitu Pai for concluding remarks for today.
Ashok Ji, thank you. All you said was extremely vital for this call, but I would like to add one or two things that we are extremely grateful to all our philanthropists for their generous donations to both the foundations, Bharat HSE Foundation, as well as the Global. And on this token, today you mentioned about Carl's name. Our dear friend has also pledged to support financially the foundation also. We really applaud to that and thank him very much. He's always there to mentor us, and globally he has been doing so much. And we, not only from the ASSP connection, but as a human being, he's always with us as a friend, and really he's doing a phenomenal contributions in the profession. So we really are very proud to have such a dear friend. Mr. Lobo, we cannot thank, and I just agree with Ashok, all that he said. We cannot thank you enough for your accepting our invitation for delivering such an outstanding presentation, emphasizing the need of the hour and emphasizing the importance of communication for saving countless injuries and including fatal ones, and protecting billions of dollars worth assets and environment. You have shown the path to our young HSE professionals to advance and excel in the field. As founding trustees, Ashok and I, we are our sincerest appreciation to our honored guest for their presence and esteemed support to J&A, both the foundations. I was delighted to see that we had 3 young ladies joined the OKT session today. The oncoming support of the governance body to the foundation's mission is of immense value to these charitable foundations. We thank them all very much. We are indebted to all the delegates for attending this 9th outreach knowledge transfer presented by our 2 great speakers, Ashok ji and Anil ji. You made the event a grand success. Your active and quality support is extremely important and valuable. Friends, we invite you all to take time to visit the foundation's website and complete the forms showing your willing interest to support the foundations for this noble cause mission towards safer workplace and the safer community. No contributions are ever too small. Once again, thank you for sparing your valuable time for making the event a great success. Together, we would prevail and make a difference in our great nations. Ashok ji, if you have any final word to add, please do so. And let's take a group picture of all those present. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ajit Saab. It's a pleasure listening to everybody. So as you said, let's have a group picture. I request everybody to open their cameras and whoever is available today, and we can have a nice picture. Yes. Sure, Mr. Dinesh, he always shares his ideas. So, Mr. Dinesh ji, would you like to share any of your ideas? Carl Hanlon, are you traveling, sir? Yes, okay. Yeah, let me take a picture. Okay. Perfect, perfect. Let me stop the recording, then we can continue.